Everybody, Phoenix here. So today I wanted to talk to you about introversion and in particular how other people react to introverts, because I've noticed in this group that I've joined with on Facebook for the sake of being able to reach out and help others, and that group is centered around introversion and introverts. I've noticed a lot of posts asking the same questions, such as, I enter a group of people, and they're all talking, and when I enter the group, they leave, or they don't listen to me, or they ignore me. It tends to turn people off, this and that, and there's a lot of questions about, do other people experience this? Do other people even maybe have some insight as to why this happens? All right, and if there is actually a pattern there. And I've sent a couple of posts, but I thought I'd just make one video just talking about the subject in general and trying to just answer as many potential questions as possible. Okay? Firstly, it's important to understand that being an introvert doesn't mean necessarily that you have anxiety. Okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't enjoy being around other people, obviously, or that you are any less able to interact with other people. Alright? Introversion, by its nature, as a classificational term or a system that we use to relate to people that have a different way of internalizing and processing energy. And that's all it is. It's just a term, extroversion, introversion, to denote how we process energy. Extroverts process their energy, and they gain more energy from other people, from interactions, from being the center of attention. They typically seem to be more go-getter type attitude. They take initiative. Often maybe, they might be viewed as alpha males by introverts who don't get as much energy when they're around different people. They don't get as much energy from interactions. They derive their energy and process their energy from the internal plane and on the internal plane. And that's the difference. If you put two people, one introvert, one extrovert, in a group of people, the extrovert will thrive, the introvert will need to take lots of breaks to process all of that information, and they can get overwhelmed by information, because apparently the way that an introvert processes information is just different from an extrovert, and vice versa. The way an extrovert processes information is different. No one is better or worse than the other, and in fact, we need all these different shaped cogs in the machine to make this whole thing called life work. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that it's not an infliction or a condition to be an introvert. It just means you think differently. So how do you think differently? For my research into psychology for many years now, from what I've learned is that an extrovert will come up with a response really fast, really quickly. They can seem very quick-witted. They don't need much time to process what's going on, because they can handle it, because they can handle a lot of information. They don't feel bombarded when there's lots of people talking and lots of things happening. If anything, it gives them a greater sense of empowerment and control and confidence and energy, okay? So they're quicker. Now, with introverts, in general, they require more time to process information and to process their feelings and their thoughts in a way that they can then feel confident enough about to deliver to someone, to share. So you might see that, in a group of all these mixed people of introverts and extroverts, the introverts seem to be quieter. They don't bounce back as quickly. They need more time to formulate a response. They're not as quick-witted. But as much as all of that might seem like a downside, and you might be thinking, well, Phoenix, why is that not an affliction or a condition that is negative? Well, because just because you're not quick in your wit, and you're not quantitatively as apt and adept as the extrovert. And what I mean by quantitatively is how much you can process, how much you can deliver back to people in your expression quickly. It's all about the quantity. They can do more. But introverts, the advantage that balances it all out is that through all of that slow contemplation and that slow formulation, or slower formulation and processing, they come to develop a deeper, more encompassing view with deeper value, sentiment, meaning, conviction, reason. They put more thought into things. So when they do finally deliver something to the table, it can be generally more worthwhile than somebody who, sure, is more entertaining and fun because they're very quick and they keep the ball rolling and they keep things exciting. But those people might struggle. And there's one way that it can, people can interpret introverts. If they're an extrovert, they can struggle to relate to and understand the depth of view that is portrayed by the introvert, because they're more on the surface. They're surface bouncers. Everything's happening quick. It's more about maybe things being fun or just making their point known or just saying something. It's less about delving deep and really considering the fabric of the discussion and it's less about considering and anticipating all the hidden elements that should be considered, whereas an introvert might get caught up in these things. An introvert might get lost in all those hidden details and double checking everything and making sure that what they're about to say is founded and not ridiculous and it makes sense before they present their argument. And often it might take so long for them to do this that the window of relevance passes and there's no longer a place for them to even say what they wanted to say. And then they feel that defeat. And they feel that whole everyone's just talking and getting along and I don't really have much time to get sideways into the discussion. And this can give the impression that one is being ignored or one isn't being allowed enough time to have their input. But that might just be not deliberately, but it might be because the other people having the discussion, they don't recognize and identify that there is an issue. They don't identify the person needs more time. They're just bouncing the ball of conversation around. And generally, I don't think introversion is a condition. I'll maintain that. Obviously, it is a way that one processes information. You got the slow processes that are deeper and more meaningful, and then you got the quick processes that are very good at bringing things together in the moment and organizing things on a surface level in terms of you go here, you go there, yeah, let's do this, problem solve. But then the introvert's also good with problem solving because they can actually look deeper at that plan and say, well, actually, it might be better to reconsider this idea and reconsider that because down the line, this might happen. Down the line, this will waste our time and distract us, so let's better manage it. And really, if you have the two working together, extroverts and introverts, it's the best combination because you got short-sightedness and quick-tongue speakers and idea formulators or executors more so. And then you got the more quiet-tongued, patient, they need more time to really develop an idea. Okay? It can be linked with depression because obviously if you struggle to interact with people and participate and involve yourself as readily, because, if you have to think more often and take longer to formulate responses, if you have to enter the water slowly to make sure that you can handle the company that you will be engaging with, naturally that's going to put you slightly in a bit of a withdrawn space where you're on a bit of a back foot. And, others can take that as a sign of passivity, you being passive or submissive, and they can take advantage of that, and they can lose respect if they sense that one is a bit of a flop and one doesn't really have a solid ground to stand on. They're not really speaking their voice, they're just there, and they're more emotionally reactive, and there's a lot of aloofness, a lot of things going on inside they don't bring to light, and it leaves people guessing or waiting or not being sure what's happening inside that person because they don't communicate it as readily. And all of this can lead to misunderstandings and people making assumptions and judgments such as, this person must be insecure. Not that they're just introverted and need more time and they're more reserved, but maybe they're insecure. And generally insecurity, people who are depressed or toxic and needy, people who are just, even people that are earnestly being challenged by struggles in their life, heavy ones. This, as much as it was nice to think everyone's there as a community to want to hold your hand and be there for you, even if they're a good friend, when it gets to a point sometimes, and sometimes that point is quicker to get to for some than others, where somebody's just repelled by that energy and even their assumption of what that energy represents. So you might not be that you've got a problem, but they might not have the depth and they might not take the time to really think about it. They just see the surface reactions and then they surmise in their head, well, this person has issues of some kind or confidence, and that might make them feel awkward or guilty. So I'll finish it here to keep it under 10 minutes, but I think it's not a condition, it's just a way that is, and generally I don't think people are out to be malicious and out to be judgmental, but it's easy when you have this reality of different people mingling and different people getting used to others reacting at a certain rate, at a certain speed, in a certain way, because they're comparing with themselves and how they normally do it. And if it's different and they don't have that same way of thinking to really understand it and go deep into it, then naturally, like I said, like that person might distance, or that person might be a bit awkward and not know what to do. And then the other person, being in an introspector and spending more time on the internal plane developing information instead of focusing on just delivering forms, that person can start to assume all the worst possible scenarios and reasons and imagine all these things that simply aren't there if they go to excess with it. Okay? So I think a part of approaching this, and I'll go a little bit over 10 minutes, fuck it. Part of this, I think, is communicating to everyone. If you feel there's a problem and you feel anxious and you feel left out or not listened to, or that people kind of take advantage of you, and somebody posted on this Facebook page that they out with their friends and they feel like they're being dragged along, nobody really listens to them, they go along with the other people who are extroverts / alphas. And I'd say in that case that, and they say that they felt that they were being ostracized and they weren't being respected and listened to by the group. And I said to them, it might not be the case. It could just be a case of causality, a case of cause and effect, mathematics. If you've got a group of people, naturally the alphas and naturally the extroverts who are quicker to the punch to suggest ideas and all of this, naturally the flow of the group will probably move in that direction based on the direction those people indicate sooner. And I think a lot of introverts, they might struggle with feelings of being misunderstood, and a lot of that can be because they just simply haven't allowed any chance or opportunity for the others in the group or whoever to really even understand that they have an issue, that they have a problem. They expect that other people should be able to pick up on things and think about it and get that insight eventually that they do themselves, but it's not always the case that it works out that way. And so one person might be thinking my group doesn't care about me when they're just thinking totally different things. We're out, we're having fun, we've got all these ideas being said by Bob, Dylan, and Dave, and yeah, Jack or Samantha or whoever hasn't said anything, but that must mean that she's okay with the plan. They might just assume that. It's not maybe in their nature to assume there's issues, especially if this is the case if you've got anxiety and you tend to take things more fatalistically, pessimistically, and it might trigger your insecurity easily when these kind of things happen. It can be even harder for other people to understand, especially if they don't relate to any of that stuff and they're just out having a happy-go-lucky time. It's not necessarily about you as much as the reality on the surface can be hard to deal with and to understand and to make sense of what other people think about you, if they really care, this or that, if they value your input. Maybe if you put your input in more, or make it known to them when you're ready, then they will be able to show you that they value it. And you might find that some of your assumptions that give you fear and judgment onto these people and your relationships and the integrity of that relationship, maybe all of that will be resolved and there's actually no issue. Everyone just has different communication styles, different ways of processing what is being communicated, and different ways of, like I said, communicating, different ways of delivering it. There's none that are better than or worse. There are obvious misunderstandings that form between people with these differences, but it doesn't mean that anyone is different for the worse. It doesn't mean anyone has a problem. It's just the way it is, and I think it pays to adopt a way of thinking that is more aligned with, okay, let's try and understand the differences between extroverts, introverts, and even then take it a step further with Myers-Briggs personality, where E and I, extrovert, introvert, is one aspect, and then you got all the other ones. Are you a thinker? Are you a feeler? Are you a judger or perceiver? Do you need structure in your life, or do you prefer just to go with the flow? And then you can furthermore find that different personality profiles, even extroverts, can conflict with each other in certain ways, especially if you're a perceiver introvert, meaning that you don't like structure, you like to be spontaneous, and you are surrounded by people who are structure-oriented. They like to have a schedule and to feel relaxed. They like to be in control, whereas you're the opposite. You feel like if you're a perceiver and not a judger, or what I call a structuralist, you might feel a bit pensive or stressed out if you have a deadline or too much structure, and you like to just go with the flow. So if you have this combined with introversion, then naturally other people might see your lack of input and initiative and communication as being also indicative of you lacking structure. And that can be annoying to structured people when, when they're waiting on their perceiver partner, the person who needs more time to get ready, and always unreliable, running up late, never on the deadlines, less structure. This can be unnerving for some and cause stress. And some might even relate that to just introversion. That's the thing. It's important to not wrap ourselves up in one label or classification system and think, well, because I am this, an introvert, or because I am that, an empath, or whatever it is, that we kind of lump everything that happens and the way people respond to us onto that one thing that we've identified about ourselves. When that one thing, introvert, extrovert, is just one part of an overall, and I would suggest looking into Myers-Briggs personality. Read the book and talking about the 16 different temperaments, all right, and personalities, and how they all get along with each other. And then you understand that humanity is so diverse and complex in what makes a person, and what makes them think and feel the way they do and interact the way they do. It's more than just one thing of being this or that. It's more than that, and it's dangerous territory when you start localizing all of this phenomena with other people into just one or two categories or buckets with labels on them saying this is because of that and this is because of that. Because then you create a complex in yourself. You create and you nurture what was originally maybe even a fiction into what ends up proving itself to be fact time and time again because of a self-fulfilled, confirmation bias-oriented prophecy of, because you're too into yourself and introverted and you need more time, you'll always be a weirdo, or people always talk over you or not listen or take control over you. When this doesn't necessarily have to be the truth, it might not even be the truth. There's a bigger picture, and I would suggest looking for bigger pieces, for more pieces. Not just the size of the piece, not bigger pieces, but more pieces, to get a more complete picture as to what's going on in such a way that doesn't leave you judging other people and having doubt or distrust or suspicion or disappointment in them, and in a way that fosters a sense of confidence in yourself and your unique ability to express yourself and process information in a way that allows for these differences to exist between people in a way that doesn't have to suggest that somebody has a problem or an illness or a lack of something or too much of something. There's just differences, and in our ability to understand those differences, we can truly unite our understanding and focus more on the things which unite us and find more complementary ways to function as a community instead of just as various groups of all these isolated people getting more and more isolated because they keep feeding the beast, because they keep feeding these negative notions in their mind and these negative lenses of anxiety and depression, and everything comes out looking like all fingers pointed at them and there's no hope. But that's not the case, despite your point of view. So do your research. Look into a bit of psychology, introversion. Look up the Myers-Briggs personality thing. Even transactional analysis, I'm okay, you're okay, has some sensational material in there that can really help you, especially in using pragmatic tools to help you with your interactions with people and in relationships. Transactional analysis. I'm okay, you're okay is the name of the book. Has some very useful information. So anyway, thanks for listening to this. Hope it wasn't too long. And, you're okay. I'm okay. Everything's okay. We just got to make a better effort to understand and provide leeway for others and not assume to know too much without first checking a wider variety of facts. Yeah.